Hello everybody, Reggie Time here, and we're just going to have a hopefully very brief preamble before the start of the video, just to remind people of what we're trying to do, or if it's your first video you've seen this month, explain what we're trying to do. I'm hoping to raise at least £150 in donations for a local social club that provides social evenings for people in my area with learning disabilities. So far I've managed to raise £70 with donations. Thank you very much to those who've donated so far. That means I owe the channel at least 7 videos for the month. This is the third of those videos. The first 2 were Live Play 10NL 888 Snap. They were remarkably dull tables. Don't think they were particularly interesting videos aside from a rant that I made against the short stacking player, which seemed to go down well. I thought maybe it wouldn't, but it seemed to be well received. If you are a regular viewer of the channel but you weren't aware of what I'm trying to do and you would like to donate, please donate to my PayPal, which the address is the same as my email address beneath the video. If you'd like to donate in some other way because you don't have PayPal, please do get in touch and we'll try and sort something out. Doesn't matter how big or small the donation is, £2, £100, £50, £10, whatever, it doesn't matter. All donations are gratefully received. I'm also going to donate 10% of my monthly profits on Sky. So if I make £800 this month, I'm going to add £80 to it, in addition to the £42 that I withdrew off 888 due to the games being rubbish, and I deposited $50 to begin with, planning on spinning that up and donating the whole amount. I think we're going to make more money doing it this way on Sky. Certainly, my whole month profits on Sky, 10% of that is almost certainly going to add up to more than what 15 hours of 10 or Snap would, and very much hope it does anyway. So fingers crossed we can get to way over £200 for the total raised between donations and my profits. So thank you very much for listening to that. If you would like to get involved, please do. But you can also help just by sharing the video, by liking it, by commenting, so the video reaches more people. So hopefully then we could maybe find a few more donators that way. So without further ado, let's get on with the hands. If there's no reads in these names, it probably means I didn't know much about the players involved. Some of the later hands I've done, we have tagged them as either loose or tight or whatever. So let's go. The first table is a 20NL table on Sky. Standard button open, of course. Defended by someone who we presume is a fish, given the stack size, or at least not a winning regular. Trivial c-bet, nothing much to talk about. We get called. The question here is, do we barrel the turn or not? How often are we going to expect a passive potential fishy player to fold even a queen here? We don't expect an ace to fold ever. We maybe expect a queen to fold some of the time. Then you would hope that any pairs or any stronger hands than ours, worse than a queen, would maybe fold to a second barrel. So the question is, do we double barrel here or do we not? I didn't know anything about this player. I think this is not a particularly good barrel card. I think I'd probably prefer not to barrel here and just try and realise my equity. We spike a king, we have the nuts. If we spike a 10 or a jack, we might get to show it down versus something like pocket 8s or pocket 9s or 4x or something. So I think I'd probably see myself check back here, try and realise my equity, just based on the fact I don't think we're going to get very many folds from whatever called on the flop on this particular turn card. I did let to go for a bet though. Went for quite a chunky one, based on relative to the pot size. So clearly I was just trying to get him to fold. Who knows what types of hands here? Maybe something like, I don't know, under pairs to the queen. Some hands that have as high card, I don't know, like maybe a king 10 or a king jack. Although I think that's unlikely that those hands will fold, given they've got a good shot and this player's quite passive. So I'm not in love with this bet here. I think we're going to have to fire a lot of river bricks, which I don't like triple barrel bluffing versus fish on these types of boards, because they just call down with their ace x a little too often. So I'm not in love with my barrel here, but we did it anyway. And we got called. I remember the hand now. This hand was played a few days ago, which is why it's a bit salty in my memory, a bit not very fresh in my memory. Then he leads this river. We make our straight. It's a pretty big bet though. And if I remember correctly, he tanked before he made it. Excuse me. When we can't fold, we made a straight. Our opponent can have lots of 2 pairs in this river. Well, not lots, but some 2 pairs. I mean, we're ahead of some of his value range, and any random stuff is turning into a bluff. So we just need to call here. Don't expect it to be like a hugely profitable call, but profitable nevertheless. So I did call, and sadly, our opponent turned up with the Queen 3, which he was clearly never folding at any point, but never mind. I remember this hand quite well. This guy was pretty loose passive. This dude was all over the place. Obviously, we don't have stats on Sky, but he was playing the vast majority of pots. I had seen him get it all in pre-flop earlier. Not for this amount, to be fair, for like 20 quid or something like that. Maybe slightly less, maybe 17, 18 quid with King Jack suited. I've seen him go all in pre-flop a couple of times, and I think he got it all in pre-flop once with like a Queen 10 as well. When his stack was smaller than this, when his stack was down at like £7 or £8 and things. So the guy was splashing around a lot, gambling a lot. We want to try and I'm happy taking it down pre. There's already 3.5 lines in there. More than happy to play a multi-way pot in position with such a strong hand, etc. So we make a raise, make it biggish. That's like 6.5x, something like that. And we get calls everywhere, and then this dude just decides to fire it in. And I don't like getting ace king in pre-flop. I don't think it's super profitable in these games at all. But versus this dude, I was very happy to just get the money in. But clearly, we're going to be way ahead of these 2 guys, you would imagine. So there's already some decent amount of dead money in the pot. We're getting really good odds against somebody who can just have lots of worse hands. Of course, it's a gamble, but the whole game's a gamble, isn't it? So we did get it in. And opponent turned up with pocket 3s, which isn't the worst situation, I guess. But sadly, we did not get there. And this was like our first day back on Sky after the Triple Eight stuff, and we found ourselves in close to a £50 hole immediately, and I was just like, oh, poker, stop being a cunt. But you got to crack on, haven't you? You got to keep the grind going. This time we raise pocket 3s, blind versus blind against this player was relatively passive. Flop what is effectively the nuts. Make a c-bet. Our opponent calls. Just keep betting. Nothing much to say about this really. Our opponent calls again. At this point we're really hoping he has a 7. River quads. Make the bet. I was contemplating here. I tanked a little bit here because I was contemplating going for a check raise to try and get all the money in. But then I kind of thought, well, he's going to jam a 7 anyway. So we're going to get all the money from a 7. Maybe he sometimes doesn't bet an ace, but then again, maybe sometimes he does bet stuff like 4, 5, 6, 5, missed hearts, etc. If my opponent was a bit more aggressive, I think a check raise to get all the money, versus maybe an ace or something would have worked. But given him being so passive, I didn't want to just have pocket 8s here and check back or pocket 10s or something. So I did go with the bet. Our opponent called. And imagine my surprise when I saw he had the top full house on, or not the top full house, but effectively the nuts there. He loses to, aces and ace 7, and obviously quad 3s. I was surprised he didn't raise there. Disappointed. Feels like we left £6 or nearly £7 on the table. I think a check raise would definitely have got us paid the maximum because he almost certainly would have bet the river. But that's hindsight, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, but pretty fucking useless when it comes to playing poker hands in real time. Another ace king here. This guy was doing quite a lot of min 3 betting with a pretty wide range. I've seen him min 3 bet suited broadways, seen him min 3 bet pretty much several pocket pairs. It just seemed to be any time he wasn't one for flat calling much, but he was this min 3 bet was just like a regular thing. Some of that is in hindsight. I hadn't seen him do all of that up to now, but nevertheless, it's a min 3-bet. He has like just over 40 blinds to start the hand. And I think he was the sort of player who would definitely just call with some worse hands like ace jacks, ace queens, and then we'd be in flips with pairs and things. Didn't want to play a pot out of position versus this shitty sizing. So if I recall correctly, I just jammed it in his eye. He was happy to accommodate us. And we were well in front, which is always good news. And then we pretty much put a tin hat on the flop and dragged down a 80 blind pot, which I'll take with ace king. I'm happy to win 80 blinds with ace king. It's a lovely thing. It's a beautiful thing. Queen 10 suited. Maniac 4x isolates over a loose passive limper in the, well, hijack position, I guess. Given there's just 5 people playing. We call. I don't love calling to play pots out of position too often, but this hand's just way too strong against this guy. He's got way too much playability. This dude's going to come along too. Didn't really want to 3-bet and then have him just open the chances up that he would 4-bet. Didn't think this guy was going to limp raise very often. If we 3-bet and he 4-bets, it's just we're throwing away a ton of value from our hand. So I did decide to call and hoped and presumed I would have enough skill advantage to overcome our positional disadvantage. And we flop pretty damn well. And it surprised us by checking through. I thought he would bet for sure. But then we just turned, not the nuts, but the virtual nuts with a redraw to the super nuts. We lead out. And we get the rather pleasant news that our opponent raises. Of course he can have some straights here with king 10, but we block that, and also we just have the insurance policy of the flush draw. So I was just very delighted with the situation. I thought the most likely scenario was we would be chopping with a hand like jack 10, 10-9, queen 10, those types of things. Chopping with them and free rolling the clubs. That was what I presume was happening. But maybe sometimes we just have the out and out best hand. And opponent does call. And fortunately, he was just drawing absolutely stone dead, which was, I mean, that really is delightful when you turn like a very strong hand with a redraw, thinking, oh, we might need the redraw, and it turns out that your opponent's just decided to raise 8x on that turn with his 6 kicker, and then call the shove when he's very likely got 0 equity. So I enjoyed that one, and things were starting to turn around already. Another ace king. We have a limper. We isolate a player who's loose and bad. Decides to put all the money in. We're more than happy to accommodate him. Nothing much to be said about this, I guess. Really easy decision. We're just showing the big pots so we can demonstrate how we reach whatever our end of month total is. Not a very interesting hand, but £20 pot nevertheless. And we did not win it, but never mind. Really happy to be engaged where we can create these situations very often, and sometimes you just don't win them. But that's much better. I'd much rather be in games like that where we create good situations and don't win, some of the time, than just be in bad games where the situations you find yourself in just aren't anywhere near as good for your EV as being in against bad players. Then we have a good regular. We have a limper, a loose passive player under the gun, good regular. Who I know watches some of the videos, and he knows I know he's a good regular. We were talking last night about it. Good regular isolates to 4x. His range is going to be quite wide here for doing this. And another loose and bad player then goes all in. And I think it's quite an interesting decision on us at this point. Clearly we're not going to go anywhere. And the question is, do we jam to isolate, but put us in a position where the only hands this dude's going to call with are going to have us crushed? I think when we jam here, I think he just gets out of the way with ace king almost always, and anything that's flipping. So we're going to get him to fold a decent chunk of equity sometimes with just like 2 overcards and things like that, or maybe even just 1 overcard. But when we do get called, excuse me, when we do get called here, we're going to be in Really rough shape from just better pairs most of the time. So the question is, do we call here and, maybe allow him a chance to? Do we want to play a high variance route of call? Maybe sometimes he jams to try and put pressure on us, like pocket tens, pocket jacks, etc. He's trying to induce a lightish jam from him, or does our call always mean we're super strong? And I think this guy knows if we call here, he has zero fold equity. So we could maybe think about calling and folding to his jam, which seems fucking horrendous. But we think he's only ever going to jam with like better hands. But maybe if we do call, maybe that incentivizes him to then jam with Ace King and blast us off a lot of equity. It was just like, oh, what a conundrum. In the end, I just took the really, really simple option and folded, just to kind of avoid them situations. Don't really want the variance. So yeah, we just folded here and moved on. Of course, we didn't fold. We jammed. Hope some of you got a little bit triggered by my saying we folded there. That clearly was never going to be on the agenda. And yeah, so we just got it all in the good regular folded. And we got it in a race. And I can't remember the outcome of the race, to be honest with you. It's looking promising. Did we hold? Looks like we're going to hold. And we held. So yeah, lovely stuff. Yeah, but that hand, we put it in A because of the pot size. It's an £18 pot, and B because I do think we do have some options there. I mean, folding would be ridiculous, of course, but I think I think jamming's easily the best play, but there is some merit for calling, and just be willing to play like a really high variance game. Maybe he jams some worse hands. Maybe he jams pocket tens sometimes. Maybe sometimes jams Ace King, Ace Queen, and we gain a tiny bit of extra EV. But I'd much rather just lock up the really good situation that I suspected we were in. And if we jam and he does have the aces, the kings or the queens, then and just fuck our lives. I mean, maybe he even folds queens when it goes 4x, jam, re-jam. I doubt it, but maybe he does, who knows. We have some jacks again. It's the ace, king and jack show today so far, isn't it? So a tight fish, this is the hand from last night. The rest of the hands now I'm going to have a much better memory of because they all come from last night. Tight fish, raises under the gun. Loose passive player comes along in the small blind. Our first decision here is, well, we can see now we called. Do we squeeze or do we just call? The squeeze is tempting because we have this loose passive player in the small blind who we are way ahead of, who could still likely call with a pretty wide range. But the downside to that is I think this guy really is very tight. He limps tight-ish ranges and raises very narrowly in my experience of him. And the hands I've got within the notes I've got, I wouldn't have a clue. Well, I could guess his stats. I'd imagine he would be something like with a VPIP lower than 25 and a PFR probably, if I had to guess, it'd be like a 25 12, 25, 10, 23, 8, that type of player I would guess. So if we do 3-bet here and squeeze and he puts a 4-bet in, we're going to have to fold our hand. So I decided just to take a flop and try and keep the pot small and look to build a pot if we want to, and then maybe get away cheaply if we don't like it. That was my strategy for this hand. An opponent just c-bets half pot, which is the most trivial of trivial calls. He bets 1/3 pot on the turn, and I don't know a lot about this player's post-flop style. My instincts say if he had a better hand than us, he would be betting bigger here. I think he can probably do this with maybe some pocket nines, maybe once in a while. Yeah, stuff like 10x, like ace 10, queen 10, jack 10, ace 10, queen 10, king 10 suited, that type of thing. It felt to me like he wasn't super strong here, but it also felt like he had a hand that he liked. This guy doesn't strike me as someone who does an awful lot of bluffing, and I think when fish are bluffing, they don't tend to use these kind of 1/3 pot sizings. So I was a little bit confused at this point, but I didn't see much merit in raising. Obviously folding would be completely out of the question. So we went with the option of calling. River is a 9, which I don't think is a particularly good card for us. I don't think he has many straights because of how we block it, but if he was betting a hand like say he had a 10-9 maybe once in a while, or pocket nines, etc. The 9 improves some of the hands that he could have been betting with here, so I wasn't thrilled to see it. I was hoping for a check. I can't remember what happens, even though it only happened last night. And he bet again a pretty small size. And at this point, I did feel like I was being milked. But for this sizing, we just have to pay it off. If he's got aces, kings, or queens here, I guess we're just grateful that he didn't use bigger sizings and put us in a tougher spot. And I called here expecting to lose a decent amount, but we're getting laid such a good price, we can afford to lose a decent amount of the time. So I did make the call, and we were fortunate enough that he somehow had ace jack. Clearly, I don't like his line. I think if he'd used bigger sizings, especially on the river, his plan to get me to fold may have worked. So I think this river sizing is really, really bad from him. I think if he'd have like potted it or close to potted it, there's a good chance I would have folded given the read I have on him. Now he doesn't necessarily know the read I have, of course, but yeah, I don't like his sizing. My guess is that he would be using much bigger sizes with bigger hands. So hopefully we've got a good note on this dude now for going forward. Here we have two tens and a loose and passive player. I think he's going to limp the button. We're going to raise, and only this player is going to call. And I'd never seen this player before. They were definitely playing loose and passive pre-flop, but post-flop they were using. Their aggression frequency was much higher than you would expect from a typically loose and passive player. He's one of these players that's like pretty loose and passive pre-flop, but then maybe a little bit too aggressive and too bluffy post-flop. Probably because he's getting to the flop with quite a lot of weak hands, and then he just tries to buy the pot with like too much of a high and exploitable frequency. That was my initial instinct and read at the time. I still think this could. I mean, I ended up not betting this flop. But this maybe should be a bet. I didn't particularly want to bet here and face a raise, given that we started the hand like 130 to 140 blinds deep. I wasn't in a rush to get all the money in here, but my hand's still plenty strong. We don't protect our hand by checking, of course. But at this point, I'm not looking to play a really large pot on this board texture out of position versus like a player that can have all kinds of relatively strong hands on this board. So I went very much into like pot control mode. The plan would have been like check here, if he checks back then start betting later streets. But I didn't want to bet here and face a raise or face a call and then deal with a whole plethora of dreadful turns. So I did go with the check. And opponent bets the full pot. We can't go anywhere, we need to call. Turns to queen. I was getting distinctly uncomfortable at this point. If it had gone with another super large bet, I think I would just have accepted that I'm going to be folding the best hand quite a decent amount of the time. But still, nevertheless, oh bollocks. Sorry, we're having a bit of a logistical problem here with the microphone. Many apologies. Yeah, so I was willing to just check fold here versus a large bet, accepting that I'm going to be folding the best hand a decent amount of the time. It's exploitable. I get that. It's much more likely to be exploited by regulars than it is by loose passive fish, so I don't have a huge problem with it though. So we did check. Fortunately, he checked back. And my plan was check call most rivers. We checked this. He bet £6. He can have a ton of 6x. He can have, you know, some two pairs like 3, 4, 5, 3, things like that. I didn't like it, but he bet like really quite quickly. And my hand is significantly direct. We look like we just got ace highs here a lot and not much else. Overall, do I think this is a profitable call? Against this player specifically, yes. Against the pool, no, I don't believe it is. I did make the call. And fortunately, our opponent was pretty much drawing dead from the flop. Here we have two queens. Right, what is going on here? Ah, right, this hand hasn't loaded properly. Right, here we go. In the big blind, or is it a small blind? I guess one of these two players, I think it was a small blind actually, and I don't know why the fuck I'm pointing at my screen with my pen, because you can't see that. In this hand, we raised to 69 pence pre-flop, And friend of the stream and tight regular 3-bet from the small blind, like to less than 10 big blinds. And we called. So this pot size isn't right to begin with. This pot is who knows what. Right, so this probably isn't going to flow very well, so I'll rush through it. So we raised, this guy's 3-bet, we've called, this pot size isn't right, this whole hand's fucked up due to a bug in poker hand replays. And then he C-bet like half pot on the flop, and we called. So now we get to the turn. I think the pot by now is about £12, and our friend double barreled. I think it was like just over £6. We called again. Yeah, this hand's just fucked. And then the river, he checked. I didn't have a fucking clue what was going on. Actually, no, forget that. The flop, he called the flop. He checked, I bet half pot, he called. Then he donked the turn, and we called. That's what happened. And then he checks the river. I was very confused at this point, didn't have a clue what was going on. Probably just as confused as you are trying to follow my fucking awful description of the hand. And anyways, turns out he had ace-3 of diamonds. So he 3-bet pre with ace-3 of diamonds. He called on this flop. He led the turn break and then gave up on the river. I was confused. You're no doubt confused. Let's get the fuck on with the next hand. And fuck you, poker hand replays, for not saving what was actually quite an interesting hand. Here we go again. This plays a very loose, very bad play. For those who are familiar with my previous videos on Sky when we used to do the live plays, he is a light blue tag player, which is my tag for the worst players on Sky. He makes it 4x. I'm delighted to have queens, and we 3-bet to £4.49. You can't see it there, but that's what the 3-bet is to. And he calls. And then the flop comes down this. And we have an interesting decision here on what sizing to use. I mean, we almost certainly have the best hand. If our opponent's been lucky enough to have us beat pre-flop, or somehow now have us beat post-flop, then he's just going to get all of my money. And we have to decide, do we go with like a smallish bet here to try and induce spew? Do we go with a large bet here to just get fat value from overpairs? Or do we go with the nuclear option of just jamming, knowing this guy isn't going to fold 6x. He isn't going to fold any pair on the board, or probably maybe he folds a hand like ace-5 or ace-7 once in a while, and definitely isn't going to fold any over pairs like 9s plus. Probably isn't going to fold any flush draws either. So I decided quite quickly to go with the nuclear option. It's something I like to do against bad players on these like very connected boards. I just think we attract some very, very light calls. So I jammed quite quickly, hoping to like monkey rep a draw or ace-king. He called very quickly. And we were just in almost a dream scenario. Rather, he didn't have the backdoor hearts going on, but it's no big deal. And then we dragged down almost 100 big blind pot, and we were delighted to do so. I think this is going to be the last hand of the video. This play was very, very bad. He was playing most pots, usually pretty passive. He was raising pre-flop, but he was playing nearly every pot, but maybe raising one time in 5 or one time in 6, something like that possibly, not sure. But obviously we don't mind seeing the flop for free with our queen 6. He checks, we make a small bet, he calls. Things are about to get interesting. We turn the nut flush draw, second nut flush draw, sorry, we bet. He snap raised, which did give me some cause for concern. I think he can definitely have some like weak 2 pairs here, like ace deuce, ace 10. I think if he had like a big 2 pair on the flop, I think we would have heard from it earlier. So I think the ace has improved him in some way. Maybe it's just improved him to 1 pair and he's overplaying. Maybe it's improved to 2 pair. Maybe he's even got the straight. But I didn't think he was weak. Didn't think 3-betting would do us many favours, even though we have like a lot of equity. Don't want to get it in. We're still 200 blinds behind. Get it in here, we're going to get it in really rough shape. But given we're 200 blinds behind, we have like some really good implied odds on making a flush. So I elected to call this raise, which I think is fine. And then we just river the absolute squizzly nuts. And he leads into us for like pretty smallish bet. Looks like a block bet. So now I'm thinking, he's minimum got 2 pairs, minimum. Do I think he bets two pairs on this particular river? Probably not. So then they are ruling out some two pairs. I don't think he's ever bluffing here. So he's what's he going to have? Straights and worse flushes. Don't think he's raising too many flush draws on the turn. So I kind of just thought, right, let's just hope this guy's got a straight and make a raise. But then, because I was going through the thought process, I didn't have very much time left because there's no time bank on Sky. And I think I made my raise too small. We raised to, it's still a sizable raise, we raised to £19, so raising 15 quid, but with loads of money behind still. He's never going to like jam a worse hand. He's in call or fold mode here, and I think and potentially miss some value here. If I could have my time back again, I'd like to put another £4 or £5 on that, get someone here £25, because if he's got a straight, I just don't think he's going to fold it. The flush has come in the back door. How often are fish going to fold a straight here, even though there is a potential flush out there? Not very often, I don't think, especially not players who are playing as badly as him. So I think I've maybe left some value here, because I think he's just, I don't think that like if he's a smaller size, he's going to call with two pairs and things. So I don't think he's betting two pairs. I think he's going to have worse flushes and straights here a lot. So raising small doesn't make sense. I think the raise size is fine, no issue with it. It's plenty big, but I think given how deep we are, we could have definitely gone a little bit bigger too, to try to get some more value. Our opponent hit the call button and showed us King Jack with the Jack of Clubs, which is like even more delightful because we could have got a bigger bet pay. Because he has a Jack of Clubs, like he even blocks some of our flushes. I mean, he probably isn't thinking that way. But yeah, I think there's some value on the table there, which is a shame. But it was a really sweet session last night. We also played a shitty £5 bounty hunter. Didn't cash it, but I collected something like 14, 15, £13 in heads while that was going on. Ended up being a plus £102 session, which was really, really sweet. Much needed boost because I haven't played almost any poker this week. That's why we haven't been producing videos. I've had an extraordinarily busy week in work and at times quite a stressful week. Don't want to go into it because it was to do with some issues at work. Not any trouble or anything like that, but just yeah, it was a stressful week at work. So I have barely played poker. I've just been coming home, relaxing, looking forward to my 2.5 weeks working from home coming up. So yesterday was like my first real day back on the grind, and I think overall it ended up being like a plus 120 something pound day. So it's really, really good. Good to get right stuck back in. Going to take a bit of the day off today. It's a Sunday. I don't play much on Sundays. Going to chill with the wife, and hopefully get some decent volume in next week and crash out at least 2 more videos. Hopefully you guys make me even busier. At the moment I've just got 4 more videos to make before the end of the month. Hopefully the donations keep coming. You guys keep me busy, force me to making more videos, and we can reach the £150 target. And then hopefully we have a good month on Sky, make £500 or £600 and add another £60 to it. So yeah, if you guys are on board with what I'm trying to do here and you haven't donated yet, please do. If you've got this far in the video, please hit the like, please share, please contribute with comments, and yeah, we'll be back with another video sometime through the week. Don't know when. It'll be when we've got enough big pots to look back over, I guess. But hopefully they'll come thick and fast because the donations will keep coming thick and fast. That's going to be it for now, though. Hope you guys have a great week. Take care, and bye bye for now.